And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. I had an interesting experience a couple of days ago, and it fits kind of into where we are right now with the passage of the big horrible nightmare bill. I had a homeless guy who approached me in a parking lot, and look, I like a lot of these interactions. In a hurry, I'm on my way to something. Mine's in another place, and I'm shocked by this person just there. And I always stop and at least listen. I want to hear. I want to talk to people. I want to know what's going on with folks. And this guy really, he stuck with me for the last couple of days because he was a guy who didn't complain. It wasn't, oh, gee, oh, poor me. The guy was just trying to put his life back together. What had happened in our neighborhood is we had a pretty brutal storm. Swept through the town, trees down everywhere. And this guy who, his home was a tent tucked away in the woods, was just devastated. I mean, his everything that he owned, what few possessions this guy had, were just scattered and ruined. And so he approaches me, and it's heartbreaking because here's this guy who, my general thing is I got a couple bucks in my pocket. I go, yeah, here, I'm really sorry. I hope this helps. And I hope other people will be generous as well, because I've always been a believer of, we use government to do the things collectively we can't do individually. I cannot individually, you cannot, we cannot individually change this guy's future. It's probably not going to happen. There are a select few who can, but giving them the resources and the ability that most of us have, the best a lot of us can do is here's a couple bucks. Oh, hey, here's a phone number. Hey, did you try this? And I did that. I know people who run the shelters. I know people who work for different government agencies. And I said, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And he lifts up his shirt and he shows me that he's got a colostomy bag. And I'm like, geez, oh man, this poor guy. And he said, look, no homeless shelter will take me because of the medical necessity that they don't think they can handle. So they would rather leave me outside than allow me a night in a local shelter. Because again, the phrase that he used was, they claim to be not medically equipped to handle me or house me. So as I said, I gave him what cash I had. Hopefully it was enough for a night in a hotel so that he could begin to get his life back together. And I got to tell you, the rest of the day I was just kind of filled with guilt, anger, frustration. And look, honestly, I did what I could, but it's never enough. And this is where I come back to that frame of, we do things through our government collectively to do the things that we cannot do individually. And I was pretty angry at our government in that moment because, look, Republicans have been destroying the social safety net for decades. This goes back to Ronald Reagan and all the assault on the poor. But I keep coming back to, this isn't just one guy. This happens to me quite frequently because I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to try, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And I just can't get past the sad reality that because of Reagan-era policies, because of politicians, Republicans who have championed tax cuts for the rich and deregulation and privatization and all of these schemes, that, we're where we are. And as we've created the largest billionaire class in the history of humanity, we've left people like this guy out in the cold or in the heat to fend for themselves. And you go, well, but you're going to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. To a degree, yes. But what kind of civil society would do this to its citizens? And it got me thinking over the weekend again of another story much like this. We used to do these food drives where we would spend days, 10 days in a parking lot at a grocery store raising money and awareness and food for the local food bank, for the shelter. And I I met a guy who's, look, he's part of my life now. His name was Joe, and Joe spent the entire 10 days in July when we did our Christmas in July fundraiser. And his story was like a lot of other working class people who fall on hard times. Oddly enough, a conservative Republican voter, moderate conservative Republican, Reagan era, not crazy like today. But what you got was a guy who worked his entire life, every day, his entire life, and only to get sick. He had a heart attack, lost his job, ended up losing his health insurance, and ended up losing his place to live through Medicaid. Paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to save this guy's life, only to send him out into the streets, only to push him out the door and live in the woods while giving him top quality medical care. It was just the weirdest, dumbest thing I've ever seen. But this is where we are. This is how crazy our policies are. And look, any one of us, and I remember, talking to this guy, it could have been any one of us. Because all it takes is one illness, one accident. I'm living through it right now. My wife's motorcycle accident has changed our lives in ways that I can't even begin to go into. And the safety net that I see is being torn apart. So here you have these folks who are the most desperate among us being denied the most basic dignities to just go die in the woods, I guess. I can't help but be angry because we've made this political choice. We are the richest country in the history of the world. We are the richest country on this planet at its wealthiest moment. So to tell me we don't have money, sorry, can't help. There's money there. We've just made bad choices. We've made bad choices by lining the pockets of people like Elon Musk, who, if he wanted to end homelessness, could. Jeff Bezos could end childhood hunger. We could do this if we prioritized it. I find it really, really interesting that the Republicans who tell us how Christian they are, how much they love them some Jesus, are the ones who are literally taking food out of the mouths of children, are denying people health care, are kicking people to the curb to be homeless. And I know, we're told we can't rely on charity. Sorry. What can we do? These people, they don't want to work. It's disgraceful. It really is. Because in the richest country on the planet, nobody should have to beg for help. Which brings me to this monstrosity. Because this guy, he's alive because of Medicaid. He gets the treatments that he needs to stay alive so that he can live in the woods from Medicaid, of which this nightmare of a bill is going to slash about $1 trillion over the next decade. About 12 million low-income and disabled Americans are going to lose care because, Bob, gotta have work. This guy, not going to work. This guy, nobody's going to hire him, ever. Sorry. And look, This is, again, another one of those things. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get a job, go to work. He doesn't have a house, doesn't have a home. And the weird thing is you go into these homeless shelters, and those folks, they have jobs. Their jobs just don't pay enough to get a house. I know they're homeless or houseless, however you want to frame that. Because who knows what the justification by our Christian folk are. But I know as a country, we've made bad policy choices. And this latest nightmare of go get a job, but there aren't jobs out there for people because the private sector can't, or more likely won't, create enough. And with AI coming and the job losses that will come, this is going to be a nightmare for low-income workers. And as you delve into this bill, the 44% cut to HUD, which means housing and urban development programs are going to be slashed. They're the folks who build and maintain affordable housing, such as the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnership Program. These things that, especially in rural communities and low-income communities and people with disabilities, people live on, need. You cut it by 44%, which means homelessness will rise, which means unemployment will rise, which means, and I guess there's part of me that goes, this is just, I don't know, the nicer way of going, yeah, we hope you all die. Because that's all I can come up with. The cruelty, obviously the point. But I step back from this and I'm like, I don't know. And then you look at the fact that they've put limits on rental assistance. Federal rental assistance going to be converted into block grants. And we know what happens to state block grants. They get absorbed into other priorities, especially in red states. So that homelessness problem is going to get worse. And then folks like this guy I met who did get a couple of dollars from SNAP, those are all going to go away. They're cutting $300 billion from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, what we used to call food stamps. And you go, but we're the richest country in the world. Feeding people's too far? Yeah. Feeding people in a lot of communities, too far. And then you go down to the future investments, the affordable housing initiatives that are there, the fair housing initiatives programs, a lot of the stuff that was to help people like this guy with disabilities is going to be gone. So there's no lifeline. There's no hand up. There's only a boot to the back of the neck. And what's going to happen is states are going to have to make choices. And those choices in a lot of states are going to be, well, screw you. Sorry. Better luck next time. And oh, by the way, the Medicaid cuts are going to devastate rural hospitals. And we've been talking about this for a while. So none of this is new. There'll be a massive increase in uncompensated care, which means that people who do have insurance, even if you're not on Medicaid, you're going to get screwed by this. Because I've got great health care. If there's no hospital to go to, do I have great health care? And we've done all this. Well, not we, Republicans have done all this so that they could give tax cuts to the very wealthy. Massive handouts that they could make permanent estate tax changes so that the wealthy can keep more. Does nothing to help the poor or disabled. No, doesn't anything to help the working class. This is all about enriching, the wealthy at the expense. This is Robin Hood in reverse. It is what it is. And I know I got a front row seat listening to people debate the, there are good things in there, like the no tax on overtime or the no tax on tips. And you go, no, those aren't what they appear. And they're short term, 3 years. Those tax cuts for the wealthy, permanent. They ain't going away. Made sure of that. And the governor of the state that I live in here in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, came and said, look, these cuts, we're not going to be able to absorb them. It means programs are going to get cut massively. Here in Pennsylvania, we've hit a record low of uninsured people, just over 7%. And now what they're talking about could make that enormously worse. Because understand, in this state, almost a quarter of the citizens rely on Medicaid. And you go, but Rick, we gotta feed the rich people. And the weird thing, again, to me, the weird thing is it's going to harm the people who voted for him the most. It's going to harm the folks who donned the red caps. And I know there are people out there saying, good, screw them. No, those are people's brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers. Being stupid shouldn't be a death sentence. So for me, there's an opportunity. And I've been saying this for a while. There is an opportunity to do the right thing. There's an opportunity to move us in the right direction. Will we do it? That's the question. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What do you think? Is this something we can possibly do? Is it something we should allow? Can we undo the damage? Will Democrats, if they take power in a year and a half, will they undo or try to undo the damage they've done? I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as you can tell, a little upset about this big, beautiful nightmare. And as all of us should be, honestly, quite frankly, everyone should be upset by what's going on. And I know there's some sweeteners in there. There's some things they're going to be good. We've been hearing this, and this is the thing that's been bothering me. We've been hearing that line for decades. If we just give the rich more, if we just give the rich enough, if we just give them more, if we just double, triple, quadruple down on trickle down, if we just keep, fighting away for Reaganomics, it's going to work this time, promise, Scout's honor, this time, it's going to work. Promise, I swear. And you stop and you think about, where we are in this moment. It goes back to Ronald Reagan. It goes back to the Republicans, being bought and sold by corporate America and the very wealthy. And look, Democrats came along a little bit later, but still somewhat along. But you stop and think about it, and you go back to the Reagan years, because, I remember growing up during those times. What you saw were massive tax breaks for the wealthy. When Reagan took office, the top marginal tax rate, and I know, hold your hat, because people not that old are going to freak out. It was 70% at the very top. He dropped the top marginal tax rate all the way down to 28%, which caused massive deficits, massive debt, and put us on the path to where we are today. This is Reaganomics. This is supply side voodoo Reaganomics for those old enough to remember George H.W. Bush's comments. And what we do? We gave it all to the wealthy. And what happened? Well, they were smart, because I remember being told, these are smart people. They know what to do with the money, and it'll trickle down. And the reality is they are smart people. They do know what to do with money. They make more money for themselves at the exclusion of everyone else. What also came parallel with tax cuts for the very wealthy were assaults on organized labor, firing the Patco workers, 11,000 striking air traffic controllers, not just fired. but banned from federal service for the entirety of their lives. This was a guy who full tilt boogie assault on collective bargaining. And what you saw is private sector employers saying, hey, it's open season. And thus the beginning of the end of a prosperous working class. You also saw, if the two weren't bad enough, tax cuts for the rich, assaults on workers' ability to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions. Well, we're going to deregulate the financial markets, deregulate corporation, make stock buybacks great again. 1982, the SEC under Reagan changed the rules to allow stock buybacks. And what have we been living under? Oh yeah, no raises for you, worker who made us the profit. No, we're going to buy back our stock because thank you, Ronald Reagan. And the weird thing is, and this is the bizarre part, there were Democrats, Reagan Democrats, who were proud, not as crazy as the MAGA red hat wearing kooks that I have to deal with a lot of times, but still, they were Reagan folk. So while Reagan was encouraging outsourcing and offshoring of jobs with his trade policies, deregulations, a high dollar policy, and all the other things that came along with it, while these Reagan Democrats were losing those manufacturing jobs, losing those high paying jobs that were going overseas, well, blame the others. And that's where we started. You go through the Reagan era that cuts the Social Security, cutting a social safety net, the stagnation of the minimum wage, weakening protections of OSHA and MSHA, and the same stuff. Attacks on affirmative action, attacks on anti-discrimination policies, and what do we have today? The difference was during the Reagan era, it was black people. It was. They were driving around in Cadillacs, drinking Dom Perignon, eating steak off your dime. We know that we've all heard it. The welfare queen. The welfare queen wasn't a white woman living in a trailer park. No. She was a big black woman wearing a fur coat, driving a big Cadillac, living high off the hog. And yet they never found her. They could never find the quote unquote welfare queen. It was, again, a creation of their imagination. Coming out of think tanks, get people upset, especially white people, because they're the one, we're working. Fast forward to today. What is it? It's not black people as much. It's brown people now. They're living off your dime. They're taking your Social Security. They're living on Medicaid. They're getting thousands of dollars. Your hard-earned dollars. They're taking. And my mind goes, yeah, it's true. It is your dollars because the rich people aren't paying any taxes now. And they're quite, if you go on social media, you got rich people going, I'd be stupid to pay taxes. It kind of makes you wonder. And so when people ask, how did we get here? Well, this was very, very predictable. This isn't, for anyone who paid attention during the 80s into the 90s, everyone knew. The difference is Democrats tried to convince themselves that, we can do what they're doing just better, which brought us the Clinton era. I have never been a Bill Clinton fan, never was. The deregulation, the assaults on our safety net were softer. Sure. The Republican would have been worlds worse. Put a little lipstick on the pig, still sold it. And what did it do? It harmed a little less, but it still harmed. So as I look at this bill, not popular. This is an opportunity for Democrats to go, hey, you know what? Maybe, here's a thought. Maybe we can come up with some policies that are going to make workers' lives better. Maybe we're going to make real change. Because understand, this is the comment I've gotten from some friends, is that, Republicans do all this really far out overreach stuff, and Democrats never do. Democrats are always accused of it, but they never actually do the full thing. They do half measures. The Affordable Care Act is a perfect example. Half measure. Affordable Care Act was the Heritage Foundation's answer to Hillary Care. Hillary Care, while complicated and the media ran all over it, was still a universal idea. Was still everyone gets it. Everyone's in, everyone's participating, everyone gets care. Still better in my view. Complicated, sure, a little bit, but ultimately better than what we've got. The most expensive health care system in the world. And yet we don't get the best outcomes. So what does all this mean? I start off with a story about a homeless guy that made me angry. And for each one of us, I think we have to find that moment. What is that story? Is it meeting this homeless guy who I actually walked away from going, I wish I had that kind of spirit. Because at no point was this guy, oh, woe is me. He was upbeat. He was like, hey, I gotta get this, I gotta get this, I gotta get moving, I gotta get a tent, the kind of person the kind of mentality that you want to encourage, that you want to help. Now I know I'm gonna get a bunch of emails, well, why did you do more? Because I'm one guy. This is why a government of, for, and by we the people can solve these problems. We can prioritize and fix these problems. The question is will we? Will we have our policymakers do things that are going to make lives better? And this is the call for Democrats. This is your moment. Your moment is right now. Your moment is to be able to step forward and say, I've got a plan. And that plan, I hope gets us power in 26. Quick break, right back.